I can honestly say I don't know that I have seen a worse show. Hey guys, Melinda here. It's gonna be a little different for a while. Finally gonna be able to start making some videos again. This is my temporary background for that. I am currently at my boyfriend's, still recovering from my surgery. It is just kind of a hassle to be going to my apartment to film and then coming back over here because he's helping to take care of me while I am still in recovery from my surgery. He was so kind to set up this little filming space for me. This is where we're going to temporarily reside until I can get back to my apartment, get back on my feet, get back to normal, and stay tuned for next week because I will have an update video coming for you guys. But this is what we're rolling with today. We are keeping my content moving forward, trying to get back on schedule. So this week I am talking about the TV show Pretty Little Liars The Perfectionists. So on HBO Max, they uploaded the entire Pretty Little Liars series and I was feeling a little nostalgic, so I decided to rewatch the entire thing. But I decided to keep the Pretty Little Liars train rolling and decided to finally watch the sequel spin-off series, The Perfectionists. This is streaming on Hulu right now if you guys want to go watch, which I don't recommend, and I'll get into that here in a minute. It is 10 episodes. Each episode's about 40-45 minutes long, so it's easy to binge, but very awful to binge, I might add, which again, I'll get into. So yes, we are going to be talking about that TV show today. Before I get into it, for those of you who haven't seen any of my other movie or TV reviews, I like to review it in a way that gives no spoilers, so that way anybody can click onto this video, get an idea if they want to go watch it, hear my thoughts, my comments, and you leave your thoughts down in the comments down below. Let's go ahead, jump right into this. Oh my goodness, I had just so many issues with this show that I honestly believe it was a waste of my time and don't know that I can get that time back. Just to give you guys an idea of what the show is about, we are following Sasha Peters, who played Allison in the original Pretty Little Liars. We are following her to some university in the middle of I don't know where. She's going to this university to be a teacher assistant there. We also have Mona Vanderwall, who is also, I think she's an administrator at this university. We are following them from Pretty Little Liars into this show. Basically what it's about is that there is a student that was brutally murdered and the whole show is about the mystery of trying to find out who did it. Gosh, I don't even know where to start. I guess I will start from the very beginning, and this is happening at the end of Pretty Little Liars. I think this is about 2 years after the final episode, and we're just kind of thrown right into the middle of the action. I want to say most of my criticism comes from the role of Allison and Mona because of what we are left with at the end of Pretty Little Liars going into this show. And I think that's the issue when you're trying to create a spin-off sequel and you want to include characters from the original show. There are just things that just don't make sense and don't add up. So I won't be giving any spoilers about The Perfectionists, but for the context of it, I will spoil a few things that happen in Pretty Little Liars. So I want to give you guys that warning if you've never seen the original show, because there are things that tie the two shows together. First of all, I want to say that the very ending of Pretty Little Liars, we are shown Mona Vanderwall living in Paris, and she has a secret underground bunker that is holding Mary and Ashley Drake captive. In the very first episode of The Perfectionists, she just kind of briefly, casually puts out that they escaped and are somewhere roaming out in the world, and here she is being an administrator at a university, which is just kind of weird considering that Ashley and Mary Drake have tried to commit murder and various other illegal activities, and they're just roaming free, and Mona just does not have like a care in the world about that, and she's kind of forgotten and let it go. How does that happen? That makes no sense to me. And then also at the end of Pretty Little Liars, we have Allison, who is married to Emily, and they have 2 baby girls together. And so in this show, we kind of find out that Emily and Allison are kind of having some issues. But my biggest thing is that instead of Allison trying to stay in Rosewood and try to work it out with her, she just runs away to take this job at this university. That doesn't feel realistic to me. It doesn't make sense. And and just very confusing, to be honest. I don't know. The whole situation just feels weird and unnatural and very forced and very confusing. I wrote that it chose the weirdest characters to be in this show because they have unfinished business at the end of Pretty Little Liars. Now, I have never read the book. The Perfectionist is also based on a book, so I can't honestly say how accurate this show is to that book. I am just saying from a viewer and a part of the audience that has seen the entirety of Pretty Little Liars and now is watching the spinoff, there are things that just don't add up, don't make sense, and are very, very confusing as a viewer. I don't know if it's because Pretty Little Liars was true to the books and the Perfectionist is not, or vice versa. Either way, something happened along the way that is not following the original story, I would have to imagine, and that's why it's getting a little jumbled. But I can't say for certain because I've never read the books. They just try to move on and focus on the main characters that we have within this show. We have Sophia Carson, who plays Ava Jalali. We have Sydney Park, who plays Caitlin Park Lewis, and Eli Brown, who plays Dylan Walker. Where I was going with that is we just completely ignore everything that's happened in Pretty Little Liars and try to focus on these new 3 characters, which is just insane to me because if you're going to take 2 characters that have unfinished business, I just have so many issues with it. Like, do you know what I mean? Please tell me you know what I mean. Anyway, moving on. In Pretty Little Liars, in high school, Allison was a bully. She was very manipulative and a big liar and would torment lots of people's lives. As we progress through Pretty Little Liars, we learn that she's no longer this bully and this mean person and that she's changed. So I think it's very unrealistic that the persona of Allison being a bully is still a huge part of her identity within this show. People are holding it over her head and like make side comments about it. That also feels very unrealistic to me because you have to think that when this show is taking place, it's about at least 10 years since they were in high school. Why is it that she still has this bully persona image on her? Again, it doesn't make any sense. It's very unrealistic and kind of just like, how on earth would these people at this university know this about her? It just, again, just makes no sense and I'm very frustrated with it and feel like we're just missing a piece of the puzzle that they're not giving us. My next thing is that I wrote that it's very strange that Mona works at a university, especially with the end of Pretty Little Liars that she was living in Paris and she had that underground bunker. Why does she then decide to be an administrator at a university? She has a background in politics and she was living in Paris. I don't know. There's just like more to that story that I really want. That's really the biggest issue that I have with it. The fact that she does work at this university because of her background in politics, it just makes no sense and it feels very unrealistic. If anything, it does make more sense for Allison because she is a high school teacher. One last thought about Allison's character, and then I will move aside from the Mona and Allison transition into this show and talk about other stuff. There's a moment when we see Allison has pictures and the phone numbers of all of our students in her phone, which first of all, I just thought that's incredibly weird. That's just bizarre, weird, inappropriate, and crossing a line. I wanted to note that that was really weird. Again, unrealistic and doesn't make any sense. Moving aside now from Allison and Mona, we will talk about some other things about the show that I did not like about it. So I thought that the timing and the pacing of this story, of this show, is very off-putting. It's very, very fast. Ooh. Scared me. I think that it reveals way too much at the beginning and takes a part out of the mystery aspect. I feel that it should keep an element of the surprise and the mystery to keep the show going. I do have a counterpoint to that, but that is kind of towards the end of my notes, so we will revisit this idea later. What I thought was kind of interesting to me, what it feels like, is that Sophia Carson is playing the exact same character as the one she plays in Descendants. In Descendants, her character is very big into fashion and has like this very confident feel to her. Honestly, I feel like Sophia Carson is playing the exact same character that she plays in Descendants because her character in this show is big on fashion and runway shows and all that stuff. And also a lot of the mannerisms are the same. So I want to say good for Sophia Carson because I think she's a very great actress and I think she plays the part very well. But I think it also hurts her because she's playing a very similar role. I would love to see her do something outside of her comfort zone and something she's not familiar with, you know? I just want to see her do something else. I want her to play a different kind of role. That's really the only critique that I would have about Sophia Carson. And now we're gonna kind of get into why I don't recommend this show for you guys. The first and the second episodes are very interesting and very attention grabbing that I had very high hopes for it. But by the fourth episode, I was gone. Completely lost interest with the show. The way that I described it is that it's very underwhelming. It didn't perform very well, and it's not very impressive. For a Pretty Little Liars name attached to it, it has high expectations. I definitely had high expectations going into it because Pretty Little Liars was so successful that this show felt nothing like Pretty Little Liars. Completely polar opposite of it, and lacked, I think, the story and the motivation to keep it going. Completely understand why this show got canceled after 10 episodes. I'm a little disappointed and I'm sad that they didn't get to expand further and possibly see where the story goes, but I will say that what they presented us with this first season, I wouldn't have renewed it for another season. The drama itself within the story feels like it's being forced. It's not enough story digging in and diving in to really drive the progression naturally. I guess the drama didn't feel good enough, like scraping the bottom bare minimum kind of drama, like petty high school drama, not like Pretty Little Liars murder every single week kind of drama, you know? And there just really wasn't that captivating mystery element of who the murderer is in this show versus like Pretty Little Liars is who is A, who's tormenting them. In this, it's kind of like, okay, there's a murder. What else is new? They tried to incorporate some side mysteries, but I just feel like they planted the roots for it, but they didn't give it enough time to grow, so it was just kind of like there on the side, but not enough for me to keep watching and say, I really need to know what happens with this side mystery. I need to know what is going on with this character, with this storyline. One thing that I think I wasn't a big fan of is that they tried to incorporate little hints of the original Pretty Little Liars with the text portion of it. So in the original series, the girls were constantly receiving text messages from A and threatening and sending them incriminating evidence and stuff like that. This show tried to kind of go that route, but it was poorly executed, felt horrible, very tasteless, and just, it did not work for this story. It worked for the original Pretty Little Liars, but it did not work for this spin-off sequel. It just felt very weird and out of context. Another thing that I felt was too fast is that they were forcing new relationships. So new, lustful, sexually attracted relationships, those were moving way too fast. That just felt kind of weird too. With the original Pretty Little Liars, they would develop these relationships over several episodes, and these new relationships that they are trying to force upon these characters didn't come until about episode 7 or 8. I think it's starting way too long to be introducing these characters and then try to have some kind of a sexual relationship with the characters. Again, off-putting, felt forced, didn't feel natural, very unrealistic, and just poorly executed. I also said that there were too many tiny storylines that add nothing to the main story, makes no sense, like it does not need to be there, does not need to exist. I don't know if it's because they were trying to plant these little tiny seeds in order to keep the audience wanting more from this show, wanting a second season. It just kind of ties into the timing and the pacing of everything else. Just nothing felt right, nothing felt correct. It didn't feel like a good pace. It didn't feel like these storylines had anything to do with anything. They introduced a new twist in the very last episode of the season. I said that should have been introduced earlier and would have made the show more interesting. So this is gonna kind of tie back into my other point of things being revealed too much, too fast, too much at the beginning. Honestly, it feels like everything is just kind of out of order. So these little minute details that they're introducing at the very beginning of the show, I think should have been sprinkled throughout the show. So that is what could have kept the audience's attention tension, versus this big plot twist should have kind of been towards the beginning, that initial attention grabbing detail and story that people want to see unravel. So I honestly kind of almost want all of these details that happen to kind of flip-flop. Obviously it's too late now. This show came out I think 2 years ago, so there's no future plans for it. But if I was a writer on this show, that is probably what I've done, is flip those plot twists and those tiny details, tiny storylines, all that stuff, in order to keep an audience's attention and to make the show more successful. The whole season just felt very boring, not attention grabbing. I could fully comprehend what was going on in the story even if I wasn't 100% paying attention to it, which is not good. There is very on-the-nose dialogue, which I absolutely hate in scripts, because I love when they give the audience a chance to think about it and have the wheels turn and try to figure it out on their own, versus just force-feeding everything to them through the characters speaking. So like I mentioned earlier that this is 10 episodes, it's easy to binge. It is so difficult to binge too. It's 10 episodes of 40 to 45 minutes each, but it felt like such an eternity just to get through it, which is awful. You don't want that painstakingly slow-moving show. There we go. That is pretty much all of my notes, and I think that I could probably just keep going on and on and on and slamming this show and just saying why it's terrible, and yeah. I believe you take out Allison and Mona's characters, take this out of the Pretty Little Liars universe. This could have been a pretty good show, I think. But I think because they were trying to live up to the high expectations of the first original show, they overthought everything. They tried way too hard. Again, everything just felt very forced and didn't feel natural. It didn't make sense, didn't feel organic. So yeah, I don't know. But there we have it. There are all of my thoughts on Pretty Little Liars The Perfectionists. Again, do not recommend this show whatsoever. This is purely someone who loves to analyze and break down movies and TVs. I'm just giving my honest review and opinion of this show, and if you guys disagree with it, totally fine. If you guys want to go further into details and you want to have a discussion about it, please leave it down in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and comments and go from there. That is everything. That is this TV show review. That is the show. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you all for the support. If you like this video, go ahead, give it a big thumbs up. It would absolutely mean the world to me. And make sure to hit that subscribe button if you're not already and you want to see more content. And again, stay tuned for next week when I will have a update on my surgery recovery, and I'll let you guys know how I'm doing. With that being said, I will see you guys in the next video. Live life, always laugh, and enjoy the journey. Bye. Ooh, ooh, ooh.